Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jayson Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Hey everyone, welcome into what is now officially a postseason edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. I'm Kwani Lunis, joined by Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn. The crew is together, but now we're talking about the playoffs.
Playoffs?
A little dance.
Gary
is
the
not
one
dancing.
Listen, Gary is the one that's in the really cool city right now in Orlando, and he's got his his Orlando Magic blue on.
Unintentionally
so I don't know why
matching.
he's clowning us. Why is he clowning us? Because we in a good mood.
I ain't clowning nobody. Y'all do too much. Sherrod with that, whatever that dance is. Yeah.
This is why we're balanced, though. We keep each other in line and balance.
But he don't know about that, though, Kwani. I mean, that's just balance. A cow thing. You don't know about balance.
I think
balance.
we do.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll get into the Celtics. As you all probably know by now, they end the regular season now the number 2 seed. I was trying to project. That wasn't happening, though. They're going into the playoffs with a 61-21 record, just 3 wins off from last year's pace. So, Gary, I'll start with you. What are you most looking forward to seeing from the Celtics as we head into the postseason?
I just want to see them healthy, hopefully with a healthy Jaylen Brown, and just have that eye of the tiger, just really be ready to knock teams out. Like, this is going to be a more difficult road. It starts with whoever they play in the first round, whether it be Atlanta or Orlando. That's going to be a tougher opponent than Miami was last year. It's just going to be a tougher road. And let's see. I'm just looking forward to see how they respond, how seriously they take this from the beginning, whether they play with their food in some of these early games or whether they're sharp. Obviously this team hasn't played together in a little while because of the time off and guys getting rest. But to me, I'm just looking forward to just see how they approach this second postseason. And the most important thing, a healthy Kristaps Porzingis. Last year, that was not the case. They went in with a Porzingis that was hurt. This time, he's healthy. Let's see how they go, and let's see how they approach this.
Yeah, I guess for me, what I'm looking forward to seeing more than anything is whether they have found that killer in them. I mean, when they hit the playoffs last year, they played with a absolute mission from day one. It was clear that they were going to try to win an NBA championship in the least amount of games possible, which kind of goes back to what Gary was saying about playing with food. To me, I just want them to eat good. Just eat good. I mean, because the teams that are in front of them, between them and getting back to the NBA Finals, are all beatable teams. And the thing that I will say about this Celtics team that, to me, I think is a little bit different than last season is the way they played during the regular season and the way that they played in the playoffs, you were waiting for that drop off for the Celtics because I thought they played at such a high level all season long last year that the concern I had for them come playoff time was whether they would have a letdown and could that letdown be the difference between them winning a championship or not. This year, it's just the opposite. They played at a fairly high level, but you feel as though there's another gear or two that they can shift into come playoff time. And if they're able to do that, which I think they're going to need to, because as Gary pointed out, the road to a championship will be much tougher this go around. That's going to determine whether they win a championship or not. Can they, as a collective group, ratchet up their play at both ends of the floor and be that team that we saw in the playoffs last year that was just beating the crap out of anyone and everyone who showed up? They were the neighborhood bully in every sense of the word. It didn't matter who you came with. Didn't matter who was in your crew. You catching an L. And the Celtics, I don't know if the way that they played in the regular season this year that they can be that dominant. But if they can tap into that secret sauce that they were working with last year, and they got all the pieces damn near back from that team, they're going to be looking at a second straight NBA title.
All right, so I'll stick with you for this one. We looked at the bigger picture, so to speak, of the umbrella that is the Celtics. But looking specifically at players, not named Jayson Tatum, not named Jaylen Brown, who are you looking to stepping up also during these playoffs?
Peyton Pritchard. He's the one guy that from last year's team that has made, I think, the most significant leap in terms of his play, in terms of his impact, in terms of what is expected of him from this team. If he's able to play at that level that we have seen for the most part this year, the Celtics are going to be very, very difficult to beat because he really is the primary source of offense for them coming off that bench. That's a big reason why he is, the odds-on favor for most to be this year's sixth man of the year. But we've also seen him go through some lulls where he's not very good, where he's not very impactful. And you just wonder how he's going to respond to the pressure of being counted upon, not just to go out there and give the Celtics some solid play, but actually be an impact/difference maker. It remains to be seen if he's up for the challenge. But if he is, which I think he is, then the Celtics are going to be, again, they're going to be an extremely difficult out for anyone and everyone that they face.
Well, I'm going to say Drew Holiday. I'm going to say this is a guy who, when he is scoring, he is knocking down that three ball. He's scoring at the rim. He's posting guys up. The Celtics are just so much of a more potent offensive team, a better offensive team. When he's right, the Celtics are right. So he's been right the last couple of weeks. It's been an up and down season for him with the injuries and getting off to a real slow start. But he seems to have his mojo back. That finger, I think, is healing. It is making much of a difference in his approach as was once feared. So I think a healthy, productive Drew Holiday is what I'm looking out for. I think if he is being that great on-ball defender along with Derek White, if he's hitting the open three, because he's going to get open threes, and he's able to post up even bigger players and get to the rim, use his strength, get that little layup, get that little jump hook, whatever. To me, they are a much more dangerous offensive team, and they're going to be very difficult to beat with an totally locked in Drew Holiday. So that's who I'm looking out for. I think everything else will take care of itself. That's the only kind of not question I have, but I think we're going to see the best of Drew Holiday because it's been a little up and down season for him, but I think we're going to see him at his best come playoff time.
And of course, the obvious answer is that everyone needs to step up during the playoffs, but I mentioned Tatum and Brown off the top. Who are you two looking to make a greater impact this time around?
Curious what Gary got to say on this one. What you got, Gary?
Well, I think Brown's going to have to. I think Tatum's going to have his all. 30, 28 points. 8 rebounds, 7 assists. I'm looking forward to what Jaylen can do. And he practiced on Tuesday. He got the shots on his knee. It looks like he's starting to. He's getting back to himself. If he can be that number 2, number 1A, however you want to place him along with Tatum, if he can be that guy and be that guy that can get you a 30 piece here and there, get you 25 and 5 and maybe 3 or 4 assists and a couple of steals and some good defense, then again, I'm looking out for him to be that guy because I think he's got the capabilities and I think he's going to do great things in the playoffs. It's just you hope as a Celtic fan, if you're thinking that knee holds up, because at this point, I think that's the only thing that's stopping.
Yeah, you know what? I want to go with Jaylen because I love the fact that, he plays with a certain edge and anger this time of year. But I got to go with Tatum this time around. And the reason why I feel Tatum has to be that guy because Tatum, as much as we love what he does, as much as he's been able to impact the game, for him to really, I think, not just cement his legacy, but leave no questions about it, he's going to need to be the best player in the playoffs. I mean, if you think about for the Celtics in winning a championship, I think this is a time where there's so many guys that he's going to have to deal with. I think for them to win a championship that are going to be in that conversation, he has to perform at a level where he's the best player on the floor. You think about the Boston Celtics with Larry Bird. You think about Cedric Maxwell. And Cedric had a great run and deserved to be the Finals MVP, deserved to have his jersey raised. But just think if they went through years of winning championships and Cedric was getting MVP in the finals every year and Larry Bird wasn't, how that would have impacted his legacy. And I think Jayson Tatum runs the risk of having his legacy impacted if they're getting to this important stretch of the season and he's coming up as the second best player on the team consistently. So I think for Jayson Tatum, this postseason run is not only in terms of cementing your legacy as one of the great all-time teams that the Celtics have had, because you got to win 2 championships to even be in the conversation, I believe. But this is also an opportunity for him to cement his own individual legacy, because all the numbers and stats and all that stuff, Tatum is going to have Hall of Fame numbers when all is said and done. But if you want to be one of the all-time greats for this franchise, this is when you step up and be that guy. This is when you have to emerge as that focal point, that difference maker, that high impact, get it done tonight type of player that the Celtics team is looking for, and they're going to need. Because as Gary pointed out, Jaylen Brown is not quite where he wants to be health-wise. And even with the, getting shots or a shot, there's no guarantee he's going to be able to elevate his play when you need him most. And so to me, if you're Jayson Tatum, you understand that my partner in crime over here, Jaylen, he may not be able to go the way he's used to. And as much as you want to say, well, that just means Porzingis got to step up. That just means Peyton Pritchard got to step up. Hell no. I'm the face of the franchise. It's kind of on me to step up. It's kind of on me to figure out how to do that. And that doesn't necessarily mean I have to score more. It could be I could have a game where I've got 23 points and maybe 14, 15 assists. Or maybe, I have like 13, 14, 15 rebounds, or I got 4 or 5 blocks. I have to figure out what I need to do to get my team over the hump. And I think that's the challenge for Jayson Tatum. And that, to me, is what's going to ultimately determine whether this team wins a championship. Because, and again, I hate to keep, beating this one point in, but I don't expect Jaylen Brown to be Jaylen Brown that we saw last year in the playoffs. I don't think it's realistic to expect him to be that healthy, to be that impactful throughout the course of the playoffs. He may have a game or 2, or maybe even 3 or 4, where he reminds us how good a player he can be in the postseason. But to me, it's just not fair to Jaylen to expect him to be that player throughout the course of the postseason. And that leaves a vacuum that needs to be filled. And who better to fill that than the guy who's supposed to be the face of your franchise? So I think Tatum is coming into this postseason with a little bit of a different mindset, understanding that he may have to carry a larger weight than he's used to, because again, I think he knows that Jaylen may not be 100%. And as much as they love to talk about, next man up and all that other stuff, no, the man who's there needs to be the next man up. All right. That's what needs to be happening. And Gary, you smirking, Gary, you got something to say. Speak on it, Gary. Put your chest into it. Speak on it.
No, you're right. You're right. I think it's up to Jayson to say, this is my team, my postseason. Jaylen's my guy. He's my right-hand man. He's my dude. But
that's my dog.
It's time for me. I'm going to win Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I'm going to win MVP. And I'm not talking about going outside the team concept, but I'm going to put this team on my back, and I'm going to show that I'm the best MF on the floor. That's what Jayson has to do. He's not going to win MVP this year. We all know that. It's probably going to SGA. And, Jayson's still top 5. We all know that. But let's see Jayson go out there like he did last year, but without, he didn't get the awards last year. Go out there and carry this team and go on one of those potent Boston Celtics, Larry Bird, Paul Pierce type of postseason runs where we remember this for the rest of his career.
And that being said, go ahead, Kwani. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to ask you to make up really good points. I think Tatum, we all know, is mentally capable of doing this. But if you're Joe Mazzulla, how do you coach efficiently? So even though there is this pressure on Tatum, it's not evident that he is the only guy that people are essentially relying on, because obviously it is a team effort, even though he is the face of that said team.
Yeah. I think for Joe, it's a matter of, if he gets the sense that Tatum is deferring a little bit more than he probably should, then I think he needs to intervene. As much as Tatum, because my fear with Jayson is that he's going to buy into that, I got to get everyone involved, to the point where he's going to have mismatches.
Forget himself.
He's going to forget about the one guy that he needs to take care of and make sure they eat good is himself.
Right.
And I can see him doing that, especially as you look at his game evolving in recent years to where he's a very good facilitator. He still has the ability to break guys down and get his own shot, finishing at the rim, mid-range, and for the three-point line. But sometimes I do think that Jayson defers more than he should. I think this season he's done a better job of balancing that out than he's done in any previous season. I don't feel there are a lot of games where he does that, but I do worry with him knowing that Jaylen isn't going to be whole, isn't going to be as dominant a player as he's accustomed to being, that he might defer a little bit much. And instead of beating, getting a mismatch with Trae Young and shooting right over the top of him, he's going to swing it over to Peyton Pritchard, who's being guarded by the Daniels kid. And it's just like, what are you doing? Take the little fella down on the block and eat good. You don't. That I worry about that part of Jayson's game a little bit because he has become a lot more selfless of a player. And I just think this time of year, your best players have to find that sweet spot between getting others involved and doing what they're paid to do. Jayson is paid to score. Jayson is paid to win games. And his ability to embrace that and do that at a high level, which he is obviously capable of doing, that's, to me, is what's going to put him over the top and put this team over the top and give them a chance to keep that Larry O'Brien trophy in Boston for another year. So.
Yeah, the one thing I want to see out of Jayson is Jayson finished 34.5% this year from the three-point line. Not good numbers. We all made a big deal. He changed his mechanics. He was not doing as much work with his arms on his release. He was being quicker and more fluid. And it looked like, okay, this is going to work, and it ended up being about the same as it was before, right? I want to see Jayson, if the three isn't going down, stop settling for threes or trying to get yourself going from the three. Damn it, take it to the damn rack, get to the free throw line, use your athleticism, your size, your strength to get to the cup and score. Quit settling for too many threes, especially if they're not going down. 34.5% is not, it's a below average number. It's not a great number. If it was 37, 38, 39, if he was shooting like Peyton, I'd say, hey, Jayson, let it fly. But this situation, these games everything is on the line. Quit trying to just get yourself going from three and trying to figure out, okay, how do I, Jayson, get to the cup, make it easier on yourself. And that's the thing. I know Jayson is wanted because that's the only real, if you could say, weakness of his game. Good rebounder, turned himself into a good distributor. But this year, 34.3% career low from three. So all that mechanical thing, it's working and all that, it maybe didn't work, right? And he took a career high 10.1 threes per game. So Jayson was chucking them this year, right? I need to see, and I think people want to see him get to the free throw line more. He averaged a half a free throw less this year than last year. And 2 years ago, he got to the free throw line 8.4 times per game. This year, 6.1. Now, can you say, well, Jayson ain't getting the calls? That's a point. Maybe he doesn't get the calls, but he's also because he's shooting more threes, and he's not going to get those foul calls. So Jayson needs to lock in on being that Jayson who was like, you know what? I'm getting to the rack. I'm getting to the free throw line. I'm going to get easy points as opposed to I'm going to make it look pretty and I'm going to shoot this fadeaway three. Nah, stay away from that. This is not your year. Now, he might have a hot streak. Who knows? He might turn it on. But to me, career low in three-point percentage, that's a discouraging sign in terms of the development of the shot. But he can get hot, but also make it easier on yourself, Jayson. Get to the rim, get to the free throw line.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Jayson, as Gary pointed out with the threes, I mean, clearly he's taken more than he has in the past. And it's not a problem when you are taking those shots and you are in heat check mode, which means you made a few. But when you are not and you're just checking to see if you got heat, nah. Get to the rim, shoot the mid-range, do something that will allow you a higher percentage opportunity to score. And Jayson, again, I think he has had some, certainly more than his share of moments where it just seemed that he was leaning a little bit too much on the three ball to get going instead of, using some of that other real estate that he has at his disposal to get shots off. Before we go any further, want to give a quick shout out to our good friends At Prize Picks, with springtime here, baseball season is officially on the way. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match your player projections from different sports. So combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball and other sports as well. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, which is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching your favorite players. And if you want in, it's really simple. You download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Off the top of the show, we mentioned the Celtics being the #1 2 seed. That's an obvious. But right now, as it stands, as we're recording, we don't know exactly who they'll be playing in the first round because that's why the playing game is for. That's why Gary is in Orlando. So let's talk about...
I thought he was there to see Mickey. He not there to see Mickey?
Oh, you thought he was going to Disney World land.
Oh,
Disney
man.
World.
Well, I figured with the blue shirt on, I figured he was just trying to look fresh to death for Mickey.
Oh, my gosh. I don't think that's the case this time. All right, let's look at Orlando. Let's look at Atlanta. Between those two teams, well, let's start with Boston versus Orlando, the potential of that series. Gary, what concerns you for the Celtics?
Orlando Blue Gary.
What
concerns you? I'm curious to see what Orlando Blue Gary got to say.
Oh, my gosh.
What concerns me is Sherrod doesn't stop talking. That's what concerns me.
That is a big concern with all of ours.
With Orlando, it's their size. They've had success against the Celtics in the last couple of years because they're a big-ass team. They've got Paolo Banchero, who is 6'9", 6'10", about 250, and get to the rack. And he's a 3'4". Franz Wagner, a 4, stretch 4. Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac. Like, they got 4 or 5 big dudes. Gogo Batazzi. Like, they've got bigs that can just rough you up in the paint and make this a very physical series, right? They can push the Celtics around a little bit. The Celtics going to have to push back. Orlando's problem, as it has been for years, 1, they don't have a true point guard, right? 2, they can't shoot. So if the Celtics light them up from the three-point line, Orlando's going to have a hard time coming back. Orlando's is a league worst 11 threes made per game. So that's not their game to shoot threes. They want to make this 104, 102. They do not want to get into the 120s and 130s. The one thing I wrote today, the Celtics were encouraged about in their 96-76 loss to the Magic last week when they played their B team. Obviously, all their guys are out. Was the Magic hit 16 threes, caused 15 turnovers, and still couldn't score 100 points. So the Celtics are like, imagine what it's going to be like when we put our guys in, right? There are better defenders. We're not playing, Miles Norris and Baylor Shireman extended minutes. Not to say those guys can't get it done on a short level, but, you're playing, we get our all-stars back, our all-defense, our all-NBA guys, our all, the guys who won have the hardware. We put them in against Orlando's frontline team. And remember, like, Jalen Suggs is out, knee surgery. So the Magic, though, can muck up the game and make it a real rough and tumble defensive game because they're a very good defensive team. They just can't score. So the Celtics are, erratic from the field. If they, are missing layups, missing free throws, if they just are just not themselves, the Magic could get a game or 2, maybe 2. I don't think they can beat the Celtics 4 times, but what you don't want in this series is the Magic or the Hawks to leave a mark. You don't want somebody hurt. You don't want to have to get pushed to a game 6 on the road to close it out. Like, you don't want a bunch of suspense. You want to knock these fools out and get you some rest and get ready for potentially the winner between the New York Knicks and Sherrod's Detroit Pistons. So you want to be ready for that series. You don't want to. A couple years ago, remember Atlanta took them to 6, and they basically had to have a rally to win Game 6. That would have been it could have forced a Game 7, and that would have been unnecessary. And they were a better team. So the Magic, to me, are probably the bigger threat because they're big and physical, and they play good defense.
They are, but the one thing that really kind of makes me just embrace the fact that Orlando ain't going to be around much longer if they get past Atlanta is they can't score. I mean, this team. I mean, there's like offensive ineptitude, and then there's what Orlando does, which takes that to a completely different level. I mean, think about it. When they met last time these two teams met, the Celtics basically had very little offensive firepower and even less defensive prowess out there. And Orlando still couldn't get buckets. They couldn't even break 100 on basically the Boston Celtics, i.e. Maine Celtics, because that's what essentially Joe Mazzulla was playing. If you could not score 100 points in that game, what are you going to do when you got to deal with Porzingis and Tatum and Brown and D. White and all these cats who are making several millions of dollars as NBA players, in large part because of what they do at that end of the floor. So I'm not convinced that Orlando would give them much of a fight relative to if it were Atlanta, for example. I think the Celtics will be heavily favored in both of those, but I am not sold on Orlando being the tougher opponent because I got some thoughts about why Atlanta might be a better opponent.
Yeah, and let's get into that. And I want to bridge that also with the question. You both kind of alluded to it when you talked about Orlando, but how much stock do you take when it comes to the regular season matchups for these teams against Boston, and obviously looking ahead as to how they can scheme to potentially win the games as well? And now I would say, let's talk about the Hawks a little bit more in that case.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because I believe that Atlanta and Orlando won the head-to-head. I think Boston played them 3 times, and I think Orlando won 2 out of the 3, and Atlanta, I believe, won 2 out of the 3. And so, in theory, we've made a point of, if you win the regular head-to-head, that means you're probably going to do pretty good. And you look at, there's some circumstances behind those, at least one win for Orlando and one for Atlanta that, it kind of negates or nullifies the impact of the regular season. I think that Atlanta is interesting because they're a better scoring team than Orlando, but they're significantly weaker defensively. However, they do have at least one above average defender on the wing. And if you've got Jaylen Brown not able to be 100% and you've got your best wing, who's one of the best in the NBA, dealing with Jayson Tatum, you might be able to keep the Celtics from impacting scoring the way they're accustomed to. And that might give you a chance to actually be in the game and potentially win a game or two. Mm-hmm. And Trae Young, I just think Trae Young may be the most underappreciated top tier player in our game. I mean, this guy's giving you a 20-10 points assist game every single night. On a bad night, he's giving you like 24 and 10. Guys like that have the ability on any given night to take what they do on a regular basis to another level. And that, to me, makes Atlanta a dangerous team. Not dangerous to lose the series, but dangerous to the point that Gary brought up earlier about extending the series longer than it needs to be. If they met Atlanta, that thing should be over in 4 or 5 games. But if you have a couple games where you're not at the top of your game and Tatum isn't right and Jaylen might miss a game or Jaylen might not be at his best or near his best, I should say, you might lose a couple games that you probably shouldn't win. And if it happens on a night where Trae Young got it going from outside, from inside, and dropping dimes, now all of a sudden you're looking at a 6-game series before you finish them off. And that's, if you're the Celtics, that's not how you want to start this thing off. Okay. You want this to be over in 4 or 5 games because, frankly, that's where the series should be. You should be finishing this thing off at the crib in Game 5 or on the road in a old traditional sweep.
Yeah, I think Atlanta is interesting because Atlanta was the only team this year to win twice at the Garden. They won that, last minute game that kind of put them in that kind of knocked the Celtics out of the in-season tournament with the big kid. And I'm going to pronounce his name right. Here we go here.
One day.
Okongwu. Okongwu made the last second tip in to win. And then if you remember, the second one was the Celtics botched the last minute of regulation. They had the victory, missed free throw, a bad foul, a turnover on the inbound, like a 5-second call, and then they lost the game in overtime. Okay. Atlanta's a little different now. Atlanta is, for the fans, Jalen Johnson's out for the season with shoulder surgery. Atlanta was kind of sellers here. Atlanta was kind of tanking. Like, they traded DeAndre Hunter to Cleveland. They traded a guy who was kind of a Celtic nemesis, Bojan Bogdanovic. They traded him to the Clippers for Terrence Mann. So they were kind of pushing in their chips, and then all of a sudden they got back Georges Niang and Karis LeVert. We've seen Karis have his games against the Celtics. Those guys have been really good off the bench. Dyson Daniels leads the league in steals, will be a defensive player of the year candidate. I don't think he'll win it because Atlanta's defense was 27th in the league. But this is a team that you just can't stomp over, especially it's kind of the anti-Magic. Atlanta gets into a lot of shootouts because they're so bad defensively. What you don't want is Trey going for 40 and 15 assists because he led the league in assists. His scoring was down this year, but his assists were up. To me, he had an all-NBA year because he just was like, I'm going to change my game. I'm not going to be chucking up threes from 35 feet anymore. I'm going to pass the ball. And he's got guys. He's got the kid rookie of the year candidate Rasassier, the former number one overall pick, who's played well. You got Niang, you got Dyson Daniels, who's averaging 15 points a game. You got Kwandu, you got I think Clint Capella might be coming back. So this is a team like the Magic that could bite you once, maybe twice. And if you mess around with your food, you could be in a 6-game series. But Atlanta's so bad defensively, you should be able to win this series, if not in 4 and 5. But like Sherrod said, Trey, very much overlooked season. I like Trey a lot. I think he's gotten a raw deal in some senses. I think he was kind of a me first guy, but he's changed his game around. Said, okay, I'm gonna be that 25 point, 10 assist guy. I'm not gonna be the 29 point, 5 assist guy anymore. I'm gonna pass to my guys. Mm-hmm. And they're big and they can dominate the boards with Capella and Kwandu, so they can make it up because they can get those second chance points. That's how they've had success over the years against the Celtics. But these teams haven't played since Bogdanovic is gone. DeAndre Hunter had a great series against the Celtics a couple years ago. He's always played well against them. How many times have we seen Bogdanovic hit threes against the Celtics? He's a big money player. He's gone. So now you got the two guys from Cleveland. So they're a different team. So it's kind of like, well, how do they match up? It's kind of hard to tell. The Celtics should win. But like I said, with Orlando, as much as the Celtics the Magic want to muck the game up, the Hawks want to run and get you in a 127, 124 and put the ball in Ice Trey's hand and let him hit a three to win it. So it's kind of an opposite thing, however you want to do. You want to spend your time in Atlanta running and gunning. You want to spend our time in Orlando, boxing and doing UFC with them dudes in the paint. It all depends.
Either way, they need to close it out as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And speaking of spending time, certainly folks will want to spend some time catching these games, and you want to do it without breaking the bank to do it. And Game Time has you covered. Folks, Game Time has you covered with great ticket prices on all types of sporting events like the playoffs, as well as concerts. And when I think about ways to engage sporting activities and get to events and things like that and not wanting to break the bank to do it, Game Time is the first place that I go. And one of the really cool things about the Game Time app is the all-in pricing that shows you the total price before you get to the checkout, and you get a panoramic view of the seat that you choose before you actually buy it, which takes a lot of the guesswork out of where am I going to be able to watch this game and how good or bad will that sideline be? All you have to do in order to get involved is to download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's download the app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off. Terms apply. What time is it? Game time.
Okay, as we head into the playoffs, another performance review per se that we should do is for the head coach, Joe Mazzulla.
Is he up for a raise, Kwani?
I think so. The money will be hitting depending on how far they make it in the playoffs.
Because these days, coaches can't be comfortable at all.
They can't.
If you don't win a chip, I don't know if you can be comfortable. At all.
There's no job security at all.
And if you won a chip a couple years ago, don't matter.
Facts.
Don't matter.
All right. That being said, though, they did win a year ago. How much has he grown since that year? Let's start with that.
Gary, talk about your boy Joe Mazzulla. I know y'all like him.
Why you always got to point to me? Like, why always got to be?
Because that's your boy. Y'all like this.
2 peas.
2 peas in a pod.
And an apple pie.
What?
2 peas in a pie.
Apple pie?
Yeah,
I don't know about that one,
Two things
Gary.
that don't go together. That's really what I'm saying.
Gary, I don't know about that one.
Opposite.
Yeah, that one was one of your better ones, Kwani.
I might have to jump on Gary's train for this one, Kwani. I might have to leave you on that one.
Anyway,
the point is that they don't go together. Usually 2 peas are in a pod, and it makes sense.
Me and Joe are
2 peas in a pod and apple pie.
Yeah, I don't know what a pea and apple pie, but anyway.
That's the point.
Joe,
answer the question.
Joe, I think Joe has grown. I think Joe's become a better overall coach. I think Joe has become more, obviously, a championship is going to make you more comfortable in your own skin and more comfortable in your own philosophies. And I think he's been more open-minded. I think the players have just, basically, as they have over the years, taken to him even more. And I think it's a great relationship he has with the guys. I think he's just taking that step forward. I think he's grown. Is he a top 5 coach? Maybe not. There might be a pusher, but top 10, he has definitely developed into a top 10 coach, and he will be eventually, I think, a top 5 coach. I don't know how long he is for this game. Still being in his 30s, being intense. Like, I don't know if he's going to coach another 10 to 15 years. It might not be in his cards. He might need to take a break. But I think for now, he's made that growth in his 3rd season, that progression that he's needed to. And we'll see. This will be another example, another test for his coaching acumen. Can you repeat? Can you do what Red did? Can you do what Casey Jones or some of these coaches couldn't do? Unfortunately, they couldn't repeat. Like Doc couldn't repeat. Like, some of these great coaches are going to the Hall of Fame. They couldn't put it together that 2nd season. If Joe can do that, he's going to the Red Auerbach Red Auerbach category. You go in the Red Auerbach and Bill Russell category. The 68-69 Celtics repeated. Obviously, the Celtics won 7 and 8, 9 years under Red. So, to me, it's just his legacy's on the line too as one of the all-time great Celtic coaches. If he goes back to back, you put him ahead of Doc.
Yeah,
you have to. You put him ahead of Brad. You put him ahead potentially of Casey Jones. You put him as 3rd maybe. Tommy, you could argue 2 and 3 years. That's really hard to do, 74 and 76. Mm-hmm. But in 73, Havlicek got hurt, so they could have went back-to-back in 73 and 74. You never know. That could be a factor. But, your Celtic historians, let us know in the comments what you think. But to me, he's going for his legacy. He's going for history, and he's still not even close to 40. So this is fascinating.
It is. And the thing I like about Joe is that there are, I think, very clear areas of growth in his coaching acumen that we've seen, specifically his ability to adapt on the fly. His in-game adjustments, I think, this year stand out to me. If I had to pick what's the one area where we've seen the greatest amount of growth in Joe Mazzulla, I would say it's in-game adjustments. You never feel as though he's making a decision that leaves you scratching your head for the most part. And the decisions that he does make, they do rely on a certain amount of top-tier execution in order to work. And Joe, to his credit, I think has done a really good job of putting guys in position to do exactly what needs to be done in critical moments to help this team win games. And to me, that's a part of his growth and development. Joe he's just getting better right before our eyes. And I think that's really the kind of really cool part about what's happening now. The level of growth that he has in the coach. And to that extent, the increasing confidence and faith that his players have in him. You really can't, when you think about all the coaches that have gotten the axe, like within the last month or so, if there was a common thread that bound all of them together, it's that disconnect that became a major disconnect between them and their best players. It wasn't just because they had a crappy record. More times than not, it was because they had a crappy record, in part because there was a disconnect between some core players and the head coach. And Joe Mazzulla has done a great job of fostering an environment that doesn't allow that seepage to come into play. And I think part of it is that Joe has been what I would say consistently accountable for his role in things. Joe is a very confident coach. When he's doing something that's working, Joe is not the least bit shy to let you know, yup, it's working, and this is what I do. And when there have been moments where things were just blatantly obvious, I don't think he shied away from that either. Sometimes he gets a little bit murky with it, but I say more times than not, he's more transparent about his shortcomings than I think a lot of coaches are. And that, to me, is part of his growth, is figuring out that dynamic as a coach, understanding its value, and continuing to find ways to do the one thing that every coach is trying to do, and that's win games. He does that as well as anyone. I mean, we haven't got deep into it, but the idea of winning 60-plus games back-to-back years, even when you have the same team, it's a difficult thing to do, in part because you usually have a different set of issues that second year that you didn't have the first year. Like this year, Jaylen Brown, his health has become a much more bigger deal issue than it was a year. But conversely, Porzingis' health hasn't been quite as concerning as it was a year ago. And then you look at Peyton Pritchard. Last year, he was a guy that you threw out there hopefully to keep the boat from sinking. Now, they want him to row the boat. They want him to be that guy. And he had, to his credit, a lot of them more nights than not, he stepped up and has been that. So Joe Mazzulla's ability to just take all these different factors and keep at the essence of what they're doing, which is winning games, at the forefront of everything, is really impressive to see. Second row Joe getting it done, y'all.
There we go. All right, but we were talking about the potential first-round matchup. So stacking Coach Mazzulla against his peers, specifically in what will be this first round for the Celtics, Jamal Mosley for Orlando, Quinn Snyder for Atlanta. How would you compare him? How do you stack them out, all three of those coaches?
Quinn is a problem because I think Quinn's a really good coach. And not to say Jamal isn't, but I just think Quinn.
What you trying to say about Jamal? Damn.
Why? I know, always got to be bad about Jamal. Jamal catches every time. Ain't that something?
Just saying.
No. Here's my issue with Jamal. Here's my issue with Jamal. I think Jamal's record this year should be better because he has had pockets of time where he's had his core guys healthy and they've struggled. And that, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense, particularly when you have a team that is so good defensively that you think that when you have all your core guys or most of your core guys around, you will be able to take advantage of that, get a little bit better offensively while still maintaining a high level of defensive intensity. So Jamal, to me, has been a disappointment this year. It's the first year in a while that I've looked at his body of work and felt not great about it. Because I think more times than not, he has been overachieving with his team. This year, not so much. Quinn, on the other hand, Quinn's a hell of a coach. Quinn gets a lot out of what people forget the Utah teams he had that I thought were just, not great. He found a way to make them very competitive when, frankly, they did not have a roster that would invoke competitiveness out of them. Atlanta, they're not as talented a team as he's had in the past. And when you trade away a guy like DeAndre Hunter, even if you're getting, some of the pieces they got back in return, I still think that they're not as talented a team now as they were before some of those deals were made. And yet Atlanta's a team you got to worry about. Trae Young is still a 25-10 guy that can go out there, and they've got lots of other players that they can sprinkle in here and there that can just kind of muck the game up a little bit and give you problems. And Quinn's ability to recognize that and know how to utilize his personnel effectively, it's going to be a tougher series, I think, from a coaching X's and O's stamp for Joe Mazzulla if he's got to deal with Atlanta versus Orlando.
Sounds like Celtics fans want Orlando in every sense of the matchup. Then,
Yeah, I mean,
ideally,
Go ahead, Gary.
I agree with Sherrod. Like, I think Snyder made, the couple of years ago, the series that went 6 games, that was Snyder. Snyder,
yeah.
remember, they won at Boston without DeJounte Murray, right? Mm-hmm. He put them together to win at Boston this year without Trae Young. Like, he can make up in game plans, to keep Atlanta competitive. And I like you, and I like what you like. I agree with Sherrod. And as much as Orlando had injuries, they had injuries of Banchero early, the same injury, the oblique injury, him and Wagner both. They didn't just click in when both of them got back. Like they've underachieved this year. And this is a team that's put together a whole lot of lottery picks. Wagner, Banchero, Jonathan Isaac, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony. They got Wendell Carter Jr. is a former lottery pick. Batati's a former first-round pick. Like, they Gary Harris, they've got a bunch of dudes. It's just like, and then they signed Contavious Caldwell-Pope. Like, they don't have a bunch of junk scrubs or G League guys or a bunch of dudes on their roster. Like, they got dudes who were like high picks, and including Banchero, who's the first overall pick, and then Wagner, who was very good, a high pick himself. And they still are 41 and 41 this year. And I know injuries played a part, but people thought, well, Orlando could probably get the 4th in the East. They could be right behind, Cleveland, the Celtics, the Knicks, and then Orlando. People had aspirations of maybe being that 4th seed, and it just never happened. And so I got to give the advantage to Quinn Snyder, because after Atlanta decided we're going to be sellers, we're going to trade Hunter, we're going to trade Bogdanovic, and we're going to get some stuff back and draft picks, and Jalen Johnson's out for the year. They still made the playoffs. They still the AC, and they still were able to win some ball games.
Facts.
Well, all of that remains to be seen at this point. All right, before we wrap up, we talked about basically all of the Celtics roster, but let's talk about the Stay Ready crew really quickly. Who is the backup that you two are expecting to step up the most in the playoffs?
Luke Cornett. I want to see whether
I don't even know why I asked the question, and that's the end of the podcast.
He's gonna earn that chip. I mean, he's gonna earn that check in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean,
both, true.
If he's going to leave Boston, and I think he will, because I just don't think the Celtics will be able to afford to keep him. This is where he's going to have the potential to maximize his money. I think he's a guy that's played well enough to where you could see him signing a deal that pays him $10 million or more per year. But can he play well enough to where he can convince somebody to pay him 15, maybe even 18, maybe even 20? How he fares in the playoffs will have a lot to do with that. And it to me, it's one of those deals where if the team does great, you do great. That's where Luke is right now. He doesn't have to go out there and score 20 points, get 10 rebounds and 8 assists. But if Luke goes out there and gives you a consistent 7-8 points off the bench and gives you 6-7 rebounds off the bench, get a block shot here and there, he and the Celtics win another chip, he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid because he will be viewed in many respects the way, in terms of impact, similar to the impact many thought Isaiah Hartenstein had when he went to OKC. A guy that they have very different games, but in terms of helping your team win without needing to call a ton of plays for them to help your team win, there's a lot of similarities between us. Because Luke, you look at what Luke does for the most part offensively. He catches lobs, a dribble penetration. He gets put back baskets. That's pretty much what he's going to give you offensively, and he'll get some rebounds. You're not hearing anyone call his play. You're not seeing the Celtics set up in a half court and let Luke go on the block and go to work. That don't happen. And so those type of guys are easy to integrate into your system because they truly are about just what can I do to help the team win. And that there's a price to pay for guys like that. There's a price tag that they come with. And I think Luke has the potential to maximize that price tag if the Celtics are able to win another title and he plays at a level similar or better than what we saw in the regular season.
Yeah, I'm going to say Sam Hauser. I want to see Sam knock down open threes. I want to see he's going to get a lot of open threes. He's been up and down this year. I want to see more ups from Sam Hauser. I need to see more this year in this playoff season from Sam Hauser. Not to say Sam had a bad year. I'm not, but I just think I need to see more from Sam Hauser than I did during the regular season. And as I said before, I thought he had 41.6 from three. So I'm not saying he had a bad year. He didn't have a bad year, but just a tad bit more consistency. He's going to get a lot of open looks, and I need to see Sam knock those joints down. And and he had pretty much an identical year this year to last year. Actually, he shot 100% from the free throw line, but he was only 11 for 11. Small
sample size.
Yeah, it's a little sample size. I mean, to be funny, Hauser in 3 full NBA years has shot 47 free throws. Damn. SGA gets that in like 3 games. So that's just funny that Hauser just doesn't get to the free throw line. But that puts even more pressure on him to hit shots because he's not going to get to the line like that. So I need to see Sam Hauser just do a tad bit more. Like I said, he comes off another good year, 41.6. So I'm not saying he had a bad year. I just want to see Sam on one of those 7 for 10, heat checks, 7 for 10, 5 for 6, just boom. Like put the other team in a position where like we can't guard these guys. Like this, we leaving him open and he's hitting 5 or 6. Like that's what happened last year during the playoffs where teams are just throwing their hands up because the Celtics were like, oh, you're going to leave his own? Okay, got you.
Right.
That's what I need to see.
All right. Well, we will stay tuned. Of course, you're in Orlando holding things down. We'll know who the Celtics will be playing very shortly. But until then, like we've said before, subscribe to this podcast. If you watch on YouTube, you can listen to the audio version on your favorite podcasting apps. But we'll be here all postseason and beyond. So stick with us here on the Big Three NBA podcast. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis, and we appreciate your support.
And Gary, don't forget to tell Mickey we said hi, because I know that's what you're going to see in a minute.
Oh, my God.
Exactly. I'll tell Mickey y'all said what's up.
Hi, Mickey.